Ivan Toney, defying all odds. Brentford may have found one of the greatest players of the generation in 2020, but recent events have kind of made his path to the top tougher than it needed to be. It's not often that we see a player who stands out from the very first stage of his career, but Brentford's Ivan Toney has been one to watch ever since he made his debut for Northampton Town in 2012. Not because he hit the ground running and broke records, but because he was the youngest player in the club's history to represent the club. And if a player is joining the first team at such a young age, there's definitely something that the club sees in the player. But what was it? Well, we really can't judge a player the way coaches can because they get to see the players in training. But what we can see are the players' performances. And it didn't take Ivan long to show the world that he is a special player. After just 3 years at his first club, he managed to seal a contract at Newcastle United. That is not something to scoff at. When he got there, though, the coach didn't want to trust such a young player with the duty of scoring goals, so they sent him out on 2 loan spells at Barnsley. After that, he had loan spells at Shrewsbury Town, Scunthorpe United, and Wigan Athletic, until finally joining Peterborough United in 2018. This may sound like Newcastle wasted a few years on Toney's career, but no. If he stayed at Newcastle, he would have played only a handful of games per season. Those loans, however, meant he got the game time he needed to properly develop and grow to the potential he had. In a way, the deadly striker that he is today is all because of the time he spent learning and developing at smaller clubs. On paper, going from Newcastle to Peterborough seems like a downgrade, but Toney proved to everyone it wasn't so. What happens when you put a Premier League quality striker in the third-tier league? Well, Ivan Toney was named a top scorer with 24 goals and Player of the Season at Peterborough in the 2019-20 season. Those kinds of figures make sure you get a juicy deal at a bigger club, and Ivan Toney was on his way to the championship. This is where Brentford came in. They'd struck gold when they signed Ivan in 2020, and boy did he hit the ground running. Going up a tier in England is not easy for strikers. There are better teams with much stronger defensive units. But Toney felt at home from day one. He had a record-breaking season and performed even better than the year before. He ended the season with 31 goals and 10 assists. But more importantly, he helped his team get promoted to the Premier League. The guy who was forced to spend so many years on loan at 4 different clubs was now going to the Premier League and was the hottest player around. As almost all managers would tell you, the Premier League is a different beast. No matter where you are at the table, the match starts 0-0, and anything can happen. Despite all that, there are teams that still somehow manage to always be toward the top of the table. That's how good the teams are in the best league in the world. You wouldn't be wrong to expect a new striker in a freshly promoted side to struggle with achieving the same number in the previous season, which meant there was no pressure on Ivan Toney. But this guy still managed to somehow get 12 goals in his first season ever in the Premier League. 12 might not seem like a lot, but considering he was a player in the league for the first time ever, he shocked everyone. Players who don't seem to have a ceiling tend to keep going up until they either hit one or raise the roof. He immediately attracted attention from even bigger clubs, but he had only spent a couple of years at Brentford. Any player would love to make a big money move. Toney, however, was still pretty young, and the only reason he decided to stay for another couple of years was probably because he thought he should spend some more time on his development, and his decision was correct. Another season went by, and his numbers only improved. Another massive 20 goals in the 2022-23 season proved to everyone that it's not a fluke. This man was really special, and he was here to stay. Bigger clubs wanted him even more now, which meant they were willing to pay even more money. No one knows if it was something from the club or Toney himself, but the decision was made that no matter how much is offered, Toney would stay at Brentford. Maybe if he kept riding the hype train, he'd already be playing and delivering at the top level, but the world is not perfect. After all, who can blame him for deciding to stay? In 1 year, he had all but doubled his worth, so who was to say staying another season wouldn't bump it up even further? So the plan was to spend some more time attracting the big fish, and when the right offer came, Ivan would make the leap. And in a perfect world, the plan would have worked as well. No human is perfect, and no matter how many times Ivan Toney defied the odds, he is still human. In 2023, Ivan was found guilty of 232 breaches of the FA's betting rules. Sports betting is pretty big in England, and some people have earned quite a bit by simply betting on Premier League games. But for obvious reasons, players are not allowed to bet on games. games. If a player has bet on a significant sum at Man City winning the league, and then his team plays City, it would be in the player's best interest to lose the game and give City all 3 points to help City win the league. His team might drop from 11th to 12th, but at least he made a bunch of cash on the side. Ivan Toney didn't exactly manipulate results like that, but it was pretty shocking. He knew betting was not allowed, and he did so anyway. The investigation discovered that 13 of the bets Toney placed were on his own team to lose, but none of them were in games that he was playing, and 11 of those were while he was on loan elsewhere. Toney's offenses took place over a 4-year period from 2017 to 2021 and also earned him a fine of £50,000. He missed Brentford's last 2 games of the season as a result of the ban and was not even allowed to train for the first 4 months of his suspension. It later emerged that his ban was reduced because Toney was diagnosed with suffering from a gambling addiction. There was a trial, and the whole world watched as Toney's gambling addiction was exposed. He got banned from football for 8 months with a return date of January 17, 2024. And the worst thing was that the ban came just before the World Cup. He missed out on the biggest tournament in the world and was not pleased about it. He believed that this timing was chosen to set him back, but then again, he only had himself to blame. From being on a rocket headed straight to the top of the football world, one of the most promising talents on the English soil now had 8 months without a thing to do. But the hardworking guy that he is, instead of wasting the 8 months, he followed a carefully drafted plan to work on his fitness and form, so that when the time came, he was ready to take the world by storm. He wasn't allowed to train with the first team, so he had to make do with the B team. He made sure he was fit, played a couple of games behind closed doors to get sharp, and joined the first team as soon as the ban expired. He didn't waste a single day, and as soon as he got the chance, he announced to the world he was back. And no, his announcement wasn't the tweet he made shouting free. It was when he scored just 19 minutes into his return game against Nottingham Forest. Brentford won that game 3-2, so in a way, his goal was crucial in the win. Any normal player wouldn't stand a chance at clearing his name after a scandal like the one Toney was involved in, which would mean he wouldn't get the offers he wanted from bigger clubs. But this didn't apply to a player like Ivan Toney. He's back with a bang, and if he can manage to continue where he left off, people will forget about his ban faster than they'd heard about it.